Wake up. But what happens if a snoozed alarm for a very long time finally decides to go off? That's the situation Volkswagen finds itself today. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are the consultants from the University of Colombo. I'm Niroshi, Ruini, Gehanya, and Madhumali. The presentation structure will be as follows. After my brief introduction, Ruini will take over in analyzing the key issue. Thereafter, Gehanya and Madhumali will take over to discuss our recommendations and action plan, and Ruini and I will take over to discuss the implications of our recommended strategy once again. The past CEO of Volkswagen, found an approach of denial as the strategy in deciding what to do next. He said that this was a technical error and recalled products without telling the public what exactly happened. Was this well enough an approach to solve this crisis? Thereafter, he also said we need to have an internal probe, so we don't really know who is to be held accountable for it. Then, who is responsible? What would be more recommended would be an approach of acceptance and immediate rectification without providing them with a goodwill package. Thereafter, we believe a strategy should be take action, secure trust. And along that path, to the question you've asked us today is, how will Volkswagen regain their former glory? And we recommend a 3R strategy: restructure, regulate, and regain. To discuss the key issue at hand, Ruini will take over now.
As Niroshi mentioned, the key issue that has been posed to us, as denoted by KI, is how can the Volkswagen Group restore its former glory in the aftermath of the Dieselgate scandal. Now, before we can look into the various strategies that Volkswagen Group can implement to restore its former glory, we must first understand the reasons behind the problems that led to this scandal. The issues and the causes are given here. The first of which is the authoritative and hierarchical organizational structure and the inappropriate culture within Volkswagen Group. This created a culture where the employees were focused on achieving financial targets and a culture in which failure was not tolerated. And this culture's negative effects were further exacerbated by the overly ambitious targets which were set by the former CEO Winterkorn, who wanted Volkswagen to reduce its carbon dioxide emissions by a severe decrease from 1 year to the next. And this, coupled with the negative organizational culture that did not appreciate any failures, this was therefore one of the main reasons that gave birth to this cheating device that was installed in vehicles to actually rig the emissions tests. The other reason is the sole focus on financial key performance indicators. Volkswagen Group had a total of 7 key performance indicators that it used, all of which were financial, such as return on assets and return on capital employed. And this sole focus on financial targets was another reason that while the employees were solely focused on the achievement of these targets, and another reason towards the creation of this scandal. Another reason was the failure to change within Volkswagen. The senior engineers and almost all the engineers within Volkswagen did not appreciate the innovations toward electric vehicle technology. They were more traditional and deemed EV technology to be an unnecessary innovation. And therefore, instead of looking towards EV technology as a means of entering the US market, which had very stringent emission requirements, they instead had to go into these unethical means, such as these cheating devices, in order to get their traditional vehicles into the US market, which is also another big factor which led to this scandal. And a very large cause was the inappropriate corporate governance within Volkswagen Group. The supervisory board, which acted as its board of directors, was almost entirely made up of internal board of directors with no independent directors. And this created many power struggles between not only within the board of directors but with the top management as well, therefore creating many loopholes and many spaces for fraud and inappropriate and unethical conduct within Volkswagen. And the consequence of all these issues was the blowout of this of the scandal, which caused severe decreases in the revenues of Volkswagen and a severe plummet in its stock prices, and most especially the complete loss of trust from Volkswagen in its with its customers. Now, Madhumali and Gihania will talk to us about the various alternative recommendations that and strategies that Volkswagen Group can implement in order to restore its former glory.
So the main key issue that we need to address today is how can Volkswagen Group restore its former glory. So we have come up with two different alternatives that we can look at. The first alternative, denoted by A1, is regain the brand image through CSR activities. Now Volkswagen is currently conducting many CSR activities for the people of the society and the environment. So this alternative looks at increasing the CSR activities to ensure that it regains some sort of trust in the consumers, in the consumer market. The second alternative, denoted by A2, is regain the brand image through good governance. Here we are looking at introducing good governance practices into the organization so that we know that the organization is directed in the right direction. So looking at the advantages and the disadvantages as listed in the slide there, we believe that the company should go ahead with the second alternative, which is regain the brand image through good governance. So let's take a look at the suitability, feasibility and the acceptability of this particular recommended strategy.
As Gehana mentioned, the strategy we have undertaken is to regain the brand image through good governance. Why is good governance suitable for this organization at this moment is because Volkswagen needs to prevent future scandals, which was a cause of bad governance structure in the organization and also sustained in the market. Why is this option regarded as the feasible option is because the new CEO expects in building an accommodating culture where there will be participative decision making and the culture will not be hierarchical as before. And the acceptability will be by the new CEO and the employees who will be happy with the new code of conduct, and also the customers who will have more trust about Volkswagen.
So the strategy we recommend is restructure, regulate and regain. So it's looked at in three parts. Restructure is all about the internal organization. Regulate is about bringing in external parties to regulate the activities of the organization. And regain is about gaining the trust and confidence of the market. So looking at restructure, here we look at it in two different sections, corporate governance and culture. We believe that Volkswagen should introduce and adapt the German corporate governance code without having any loopholes. It was misinterpreted before, but we believe that they should adapt it in terms of corporate governance. And currently, the supervisory board consists mainly, a majority consists of the Porsche family, and the corporate decisions are mainly taken by the supervisory board. We believe the supervisory board should be restructured. 2/3 of the board, or 75%, should comprise of non-executive directors. And the current situation is the employees appoint the directors or the supervisory board, but we believe it's the investors who should be appointing the non-executive directors. Now, when looking at the committees, there should be proper nomination committees, audit committees, and remuneration committees. And it should be their say when looking at the audit committees to bring in external auditors and so on. So when looking at the culture, now the current culture is very authoritative. It's the senior management that takes the decisions and they are imposed on the engineers, and regardless of whether it can actually be implemented or not, the engineers just obey the orders that have been given to them. So we believe this culture should be changed. It should be an open door policy and a much more decentralized approach. they should be having a say in what actually can be done and not. They should be able to voice their concerns. And whistleblowing should also be incorporated to the culture, and these whistleblowers should be protected. So team collaboration is about participative decision making, where the engineers can actually participate in the decision making and say whether a certain order can actually be conducted, carried out or not.
So looking at the next next option of our strategy is regulate. Not only you need to restructure your corporate governance structure, but also you need to regulate on a regular basis. So what we suggest is currently that there are manufacturers conducting reviews and audits of themselves. So as consultants, we believe that Volkswagen should be getting the support of external audit committees in order to carry out their audits. One such option is the German Stock Corporation. Since we are suggesting that Volkswagen will be undertaking the German Corporate Governance Code, it's necessary that external audits are carried out by the German Stock Corporation, who is the authoritative of the Corporate Governance Code. And next, since there has been issues with the external environment, such as carbon emission, nitrogen oxide emission standards, we suggest that external environment audits need to be carried out by Volkswagen Group in order to ensure that carbon dioxide emissions and nitrogen oxide emission standards are met. And also, there needs to be an external audit from the US. Why US? Because this scandal began when the US reported that Volkswagen has been carrying out some fraudulent activities. Therefore, it is important for Volkswagen to bring in an external party from the United States who would prove that their action has been transparent, and to ensure that their action will not be fraudulent in future. Therefore, we suggest an external audit organization, a professional body such as E&Y, PwC can be undertaken in order for these external audit activities.
The final part of our strategy is regaining the customer trust and regaining the market. So in this, we believe first, the CEO should carry out a press conference informing the public about the necessary actions or the necessary corrective actions that have been taken in order to correct the organization and in order to set the organization in the correct direction. We believe that is really important. The second part of this particular aspect is technological innovation. Currently, we believe the Volkswagen organization is somewhat traditional and they do not look into technological innovation so much. So we believe in the short term, they should initially move into, it says that they are currently in the Chinese SUV market, the budgeted SUVs. We believe in order to gain some revenue in the short term, they should continue providing for this SUV market and also enter the US market with the electric vehicle that they have. And in the long term, there will be certain modifications done to these vehicles and they will be focusing on other markets as well. So for all of these approaches, we believe a marketing campaign is really necessary, and we are going with the tagline, on the road to trust. Since we have lost the trust to a certain extent, we believe it's important for Volkswagen to do a proper marketing campaign, a thorough marketing campaign, which would reach every individual in the public and which would ensure that their trust is regained. So through this, the objective is to prevent future scandals and restore the former glory of Volkswagen. That's the objective of our strategy.
The action plan of restructure, regulate, regain will be as shown above. So in Q1, Volkswagen needs to undertake the board restructuring, appointment of committees, and setting realistic goals such as incorporation of non-financial KPIs to their solely financial KPIs. And then, since there will be a change in the organization structure, there definitely needs to be some sort of change management in order to ensure that employees are comfortable with the work that they are carrying on. And then also regarding the media campaign, press conference, marketing campaign needs carried out immediately. The SUV for China that is being catered at the market needs to be promoted and needs to be catered at a better level in order to ensure that we do not lose the Chinese market, because the Chinese market is not very affected by this scandal. And also, since there is an EV vehicle produced by Volkswagen, that could be promoted to the US market as soon as the press conference is over, in order to ensure that environmental friendly vehicles will approach the US and to regain the trust. And regarding the EV innovation to gain the US market, which is an expectation of the company, needs to be carried out within the second year. Then regular audits and recalls and rectifications also should be carried out within the first year. So the resources required for this action plan is the technology, employees, and the past glory of Volkswagen which needs to be rebuilt. So the impact of our strategy is to prevent future scandals of Volkswagen and also to restore its former glory.
Ruini will now look at the financial impact to the organization.
Let's take a look at the financial implications of our recommended strategies. First, an increase in revenue from the SUVs and electric vehicles in the future. As Gehania said, we will be increasing our SUVs sales in China, and this will provide Volkswagen with the very much needed short-term revenue increase, as well as through increasing these SUVs provided in the future, earning a sustainable revenue source from China through its SUVs in the future as well as in the short term. And also the same through the electric vehicle sales in America, which is a very growing market for electric vehicles. It will also not only increase the revenues for Volkswagen, but also show the public that they are very much turning a new page in terms of their commitment to environmental friendliness. Also, an increase in revenues from regaining trust through the new corporate governance structures and the marketing campaign which will follow to demonstrate to the world that Volkswagen Group has now more sustainable, more transparent, and more reliable. And through this, we expect to regain the trust of the public and the customers, and therefore instill the revenue growth that has now decreased and into the future as well as for the share prices that have plummeted as a result of the scandal. Through the alternatives and the strategies that we recommend, we also expect a share price increase in the future. And the overall impact of our strategies as a whole is therefore the revival of the profits of the Volkswagen Group to the future, and also increased sustainability of their revenue flows. And now Niroshi will talk to us about the risks and the challenges that Volkswagen might face in implementing these strategies.
There are two main challenges in implementing this strategy. Both are in forms of resistance: shareholder resistance and employee resistance to change. Therefore, in terms of employees, it is important that we have a change agent or a change champion who will carry out a proper change management program before these changes are implemented within this company. In terms of shareholder resistance, it is important to communicate to them if you need going concern or sustainability of this business, and to make sure that you get a return on your investment, that we need to make these changes. So communication is an integral part in recommending this strategy. In conclusion, Volkswagen needs to ensure that they follow the structure of restructure, regulate, and regain to make sure that they restore its former glory. And what more to say? Volkswagen, it's time to wake up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is the University of Colombo. And I think you may all happily leave to the concourse, and we will come over with the results. Thank you very much again. Oh, the questions, yes. So only Volkswagen to wake up, right? Right, questions.
issue with the credibility of the new CEO, but he has been authoritative in the past, but he has seen the effects, the negative impacts of this scandal, and he himself has realized that it's important for there to be a change. So since there is self-realization, we believe that itself is an important aspect, and he will be able to drive the organization through this change.
But I just following on to that, at a bigger level, what do you think could be the challenges of having the current CEO staying on?
Well, if I may come in, while some may question the credibility of the current CEO and in his place of actually changing what needs to be changed within Volkswagen, one can also argue that if one was to bring a complete outsider, that the employees within Volkswagen would not actually accept it, making change management much harder than it needs to be. They would much prefer someone that they recognize, someone that they already trust and respect. So therefore, we believe that it is integral that the person that is leading them, they actually trust that person. So they believe that he is actually the best person for the job.
You mentioned about you would convince the shareholders to let go or give more, open culture. What if they won't, resign as the board of directors or in the supervisory board? What other options would you suggest?
What we thought of was, if we do not take this corporate governance step, despite it being bringing drastic changes, the company is going to go down. So we thought, in terms of managing the future, this is important that we communicate it to them. And for shareholders, their main interest lies in the fact that they get a return, more than the fact that there's nepotism and power remains in this company. So if they do go down, we believe that this is already a publicly listed entity. And if they gain back their trust, there will be people willing to invest. So this drastic change will definitely have to be something that they have to go ahead with.
So you talked about two solutions: regaining kind of brand image through CSR activities or good corporate governance. I guess I'd love to understand your thinking behind why did you choose good corporate governance over CSR activity? Like, what was the main reasoning? Why was it one or the other? Could it have been both? I guess is a follow-up question to that.
Well, they're already conducting many CSR activities, and the scandal happened despite CSR activities, and there are two different areas, right? So therefore, we believe they will be continuing the CSR activities that they're already doing. It's just that the alternative was to increase the CSR activities. So therefore, we believe there will be CSR activities going on, whatever they have been doing so far. Along with that, we should be incorporating corporate governance, good governance, into the organization.
Basically, choosing that alternative was an option because we thought they already have a CSR strategy. So what would it do for us to keep mentioning the fact that do CSR? So our option was different. That's
In fact, the public might look on it with cynicism, like
Yes.
they've been doing CSR so far, but this scandal happened anyway. So if we were to increase our CSR, it would just seem very hypocritical, I suppose.
Maybe taking that point forward a bit further then. So I was interested in your suggestions around continuing to expand the SUV range in China, and I understand the financial side of that, but do you think from a organisational perspective there's a risk that you could be perceived as playing arbitrage against environmental regulations in different parts of the world, and would that damage your ability to regain trust?
We believe that that concern can be mitigated by the fact that all the other corporate governance restructuring and the other alternative strategies that we are implementing would offset that. I'm sure the public would realize that we are trying to keep Volkswagen, that they are trying to keep Volkswagen alive, and at the same time also restructuring from within what needs to be restructured, so that they would not look on that increase in sales in China as a negative thing per se.
And also, since the scandal is with the diesel vehicles, so the SUVs in China, they prefer more gasoline vehicles.
Right.
So if they are going ahead with that option, actually they are not being blamed for the Dieselgate scandal.
Thank you.
Also, there you have suggested seems like a lot to do, given the from the share price and then the limited resources. how could you motivate the employees? I know that you mentioned about it, but how could you, motivate the employees to deliver what they are promised to deliver right now? Like, not just to say open door policy or whatever. So what other suggestions would you make?
Participative decision making was our main thought behind it. If somebody is involved in making a decision, they are likely to follow on. The most problem with the employees in this case is the fact that they are not involved at all. They are given a random target and told, hey, go achieve it. But we thought if you are involved in making this target and if you are involved in decision making, you will feel more important and thereafter follow on with what is required.
Just to follow up on that, I think a lot of decisions are made by I think we call it the hippo, right? The highest paid individual in the room, right? So how do you get the more junior, the engineers who kind of have always been taking orders? Like, what kind of strategies would you think of to make sure that their voice is heard, or how would they approach it?
So basically, in terms of building functional departments without making it a big decision making by themselves, in terms of it should be the departmental heads and who comes after them who make sure that even lower level employees are looked after. So the top management or the CEO themselves can't really make sure that everybody is heard. So it comes down to what boils down in terms of the hierarchy. So if you have a more open door policy in terms of everybody or the management, even the lower level management, we believe that lower level employees can definitely be heard and they will have a voice.
Throughout the action plan that you've outlined, you'd obviously still be facing the daily press and recurrence of settlement of legacy issues which happened in the past. How do you think that the company would best manage that bad news stream which would be coming out on an ongoing basis at the same time as trying to change themselves for the future?
Well, like we said, they have to look into the fallouts of the mistakes that they have made in the past. So the best strategies that they could use to actually mitigate or to balance the fact that they are trying to restructure themselves as well as the bad effects from the previous mistakes was for them to, I suppose, always admit to their mistakes and keep apologizing perhaps for the mistakes that they have made and for the promises to not allow this sort of thing to happen in the future.
Basically, their approach in denial is likely to be condemned by public even more. You've done something wrong and you keep continuing to do things even more wrong. So we believe admitting to their mistakes will basically be the best PR effort they can take at the moment.
So you kind of summarized the kind of 5 key flaws, right? And one of them was sole focus on finance KPIs. I think you talked about.
Yes.
So, I mean, what other KPIs could they use?
Non-financial key performance indicators, such as the KPI, like how many defects were identified by an individual employee. Such a KPI would not have existed in the prior organizational structure, where they would actually sweep defects under the rug. So, or maybe how many production issues or production failures identified. Those sort of KPIs would then be introduced to actually beat the adverse effects of solely financial KPIs.
Cool. And just in that follow-up, another one you mentioned was like this kind of not allowed to fail, right?
Yes.
So I guess how could they kind of change that kind of that kind of attitude where how can they make sure that engineers or whoever it is have an opportunity to fail?
Through the creation of these non-financial KPIs and the change in the culture as a whole, which tells them that they do not need to achieve financial goals by any means necessary. And through the introduction of the code of ethics, the new code of ethics, and the corporate governance structure. So that is how we wish to educate all the employees within Volkswagen that it is okay to make mistakes. The process is more important than the means, or simply just as important.
less than 3 minutes.
I'll ask one more question.
Okay.
If that's okay. I'm interested, to what extent is the environment a relevant factor here, or is it really just the byproduct of a case study that just happens to impact on an environmental outcome, or do you think how important is it that we're talking about the environment and the future in the context of the challenge that Volkswagen face?
It is very important because now in the vehicle sector there has been developments looking at electric vehicles which will be environmentally friendly. So Volkswagen has been ignoring that aspect. Rather, they have been focusing on diesel vehicles mostly because of the European market, and also they want to reach the US market. So that's why we suggested that EV vehicles, electric vehicles would be a good option to reach the US market because they are environmentally friendly, and also because it will have a good impact on the environment. So it will bring good image for Volkswagen as well, being environmentally friendly, because it is very important.
Yeah, I guess the reason, some of the background for that is looking at the case, I can see that sales don't look like they were particularly impacted in the immediate breaking of the news. And so it just strikes me to what extent is this a commercial issue, to what extent is it a CSR issue?
The reason for that is the fallout. It actually happened towards the end of their financial year. Therefore, it did not impact their bottom line for that year itself. The impact on the following year has yet to be seen.